Hello, Spencer County, and welcome to the weekly video update from Spencer County Schools. My name is Todd Russell, and I'm the Director of Special Education and Early Childhood Education for the district. I was hoping to be standing on the construction site for the new Early Learning Center in order to give you a construction update. But there have been many questions in regards to special education and preschool for the upcoming school year. So my goal today is to answer some of those questions the best that I can. However, I want to preface what I am going to say today. As you know, we live in an ever-changing times. By the time that you have viewed this video update, things could change. It should also be noted that the Board of Education will be meeting next week to determine what model the district uses for at least the beginning of the school year. Once we have that knowledge, we will have better answers to what the school year will look like for your student. Before I give the preschool and special education update, Mr. Adams has asked that I remind you that graduation for the class of 2020 will be taking place on Saturday, August 1st. Details are forthcoming from the high school. Please follow those instructions closely so that we remain in compliance with health guidelines. Now for the preschool update. First, let me describe ways that kids qualify for preschool. It's not a all-come program. You have to go through a screening, and there are two main ways that you can qualify for state-funded preschool. Number one, if the student is 4 years old and meets income eligibility guidelines, such as if they qualify for free and reduced lunch. The other way that a student qualifies for preschool is if they are 3 or 4 years old and have a developmental delay. That's where our screening comes into play. In years past, we have taken tuition students on a basis if we have open spots. However, this year we will not be able to take those new tuition students due to the reduced capacity for our classrooms in maintaining CDC requirements. So, as I said, there is that screening process. This week, we have 2 screenings that are taking place. Both of them are full. However, if you would like to get your 3 or 4-year-old to be part of the August screenings, I will give you information at the end of this video. So now let me take a little bit of time to give you an idea of how our screening process works during the COVID pandemic. Normally, we have all of our preschool and related service staff for the screenings, but we have cut that in half due to the CDC guidelines. We are asking when a parent comes to screening, only one parent attend along with the child. Temperature checks will occur upon entrance, and masks will be worn by all staff and the parent. Here's the kicker. Preschool students do not have to wear masks at the screening, and I will go into a little bit more detail about that as well in a second. We're only scheduling 2 children to be screened every 30 minutes, and all social distancing guidelines will be followed. All materials and manipulatives that are used in the screenings will be disinfected between uses. The result meetings will be held using social distancing and CDC guidelines. It should be noted, we are not placing any students in a particular classroom at the screenings. Until we get what model we're going to use for our district, we cannot do that at this time. So, once the student does qualify for preschool, parents want to know, what is the school day going to look like for those preschoolers? As you may or may not know, preschool is very hands-on, and it's going to make things like social distancing very difficult. So let's start with bus transportation. In preschool, we have what is called a hand-to-hand transfer. For bus transportation, this means that the parent holds the child's hand at the bus stop, and once the bus arrives, the bus monitor takes the child's hand from the parent in order to help the student board the bus. It should be noted that preschool and kindergarten students do not have to wear masks on the bus. It was thought that they did not have to wear masks only in the classroom, but they did on the bus. We have got the guidance now. Preschool and kindergarten students do not have to wear masks from the time they board the bus until they leave that day, get home that day. While on the bus, preschool and kindergarten students will sit in the same location with the bus monitor. So those students that are unmasked will have a specific location on the bus. Once the bus arrives at school, the bus monitor will take the preschool student to the classroom by hand. There has been some debate about, well, what if we have multiple preschool students on the same bus? How is that going to work? We're still working on that, and as those answers come, we will get those to you. The Kentucky Department of Education has put out a consideration document that states that preschool classrooms should be set up in a reduced capacity that allows for social distancing. So, as you may or may not know, this is a specific challenge as our preschool classrooms are very center-based. We have all kinds of centers throughout that classroom. So what are we going to do to meet those guidelines? The bottom line for us is we're going to have to limit teaching and learning materials to those that can be easily cleaned and disinfected. We're going to have to avoid using materials that cannot be cleaned or sanitized, such as Play-Doh. We have water and sensory tables. Those will not be in use at this time either, as those are not easily cleaned and disinfected. Center time is going to be very structured, meaning that the students will be in one center for an allotted amount of time, and students will be grouped together in pairs to rotate through the centers. Each student will have an individual art container. In the past, we have had markers, pencils, crowns, whatever out for students to use, but now they're going to be using from their individual art container. Students will wash or sanitize hands before and after each center, and the number of centers that we have available during the day is going to be limited as well. It should also be noted that social distancing, personal boundaries, personal health will become topics of instruction within the preschool classroom. Hand washing has always been a consistent procedure and routine within the classroom, and this will hold true even more now. If you have a 3 or 4-year-old that you would like to get screened, please call our preschool office at 477-3210. There may not be somebody there to answer that call at the time. Please leave a message and we will get back to you so that we can set you up on an August screening date. So now I'm going to move on to special education. And this is the biggest question that I have been receiving is, what about our special education students? What about our exceptional learners in all of this? I'm going to briefly touch on some items that I have answers to at this time, but I know many more questions will come out of the items that I go over. First, once the Board of Education makes the decision on the model that Spencer County Schools will follow for the school year, our special education department will go full force into planning for whatever the school year will bring. So if we have a traditional model where kids are in school, we will plan for that. If we have a virtual model where kids are at home, or a combination of the two, we're going to be planning big time. Second, a key word in special education is individualized. So what is planned for one student may not be appropriate for the next student. Our special education teachers are going to be tasked with meeting the individual needs of the students on their caseloads, no matter what model is chosen by the Board of Education. Having said all of that, here are some items that I do have information about currently. Number one, staff will be provided with the proper PPE for their specific student population. This includes masks, face shields, gloves, surgical gowns, etc. Whatever population our staff serves, they will be prepared for it with the proper PPE. Number two, some of our middle and high school ECE students are part of classrooms that use community-based instruction as a teaching strategy. The Kentucky Department of Education is suspending this strategy as long as social distancing policies are in place. So for this school year, we will probably not have community-based instruction. Number three, we will continue to hold in-person therapy sessions such as speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, while following CDC guidelines. It should also be noted that we will be offering teletherapy and virtual therapy for those students participating in our virtual academy option. Number four, our small group instruction, which takes place within our special education department, will continue as well for students that are in school. We're going to follow all CDC guidelines in order for that to occur. I understand that there are many more questions out there, and those answers will be forthcoming within the next weeks. I appreciate your patience as the district plans through these challenging times. Next week's video by Mr. Adams or Mr. Abel should be extremely informative, as we will have the answer to what model the district will start the school year with. Again, thank you for your patience and have a great weekend.